Hi all, thank you for joining us today in this workshop to talk about the Lookout platform and how it will help the organization to provide end-to-end security from endpoint to the cloud and enable the productivity of the users to consume corporate services from everywhere at any time. My name is Ehsan AlRababah. I'm the lead system engineer for Lookout in the Middle East and Turkey and Africa region. And I'll be with you today. It's really a great pleasure to host this session. Before start talking about the product itself, we need to understand the current challenges that the majority of the organizations are seeing, and that force them to look into options where they need to consider some security solutions to meet and resolve these challenges. So the first challenge, which we think just got more and more last year because of the COVID situation, as you can see, like many of the users moved to the capability to work remotely. They can work from everywhere. And before COVID, this was restricted to certain type of users, but with COVID, I think the most of the users, the majority of the users were forced to adopt into the remote workforce model, and organization that they were not ready. I think they rushed really hard in order to enable their workforce to be able to do the job and keep their business running. So because of that, you will see that many of the organization, they're moving. If they didn't start before the COVID, after the COVID, they expedited their digital transformation, moving to the cloud, using mobile application, mobile services, and all sorts of unsanctioned applications by the organization, just to keep their business running and to keep their users productive. Now, some of the organization, they choose to implement VPN in order to provide like a tunnel access to the organization resources, but also that impacted the end user behavior, experience and behavior. Also, it has some sort of security implications with the trust model that the VPN provides to the user to access the organization resources. Another trend that's already like explored here, that you will see that the employees, they start to use different sort of apps. Some of them are deemed like to be personal ones, like Facebook messengers, and others they try to connect it through any Wi-Fi, not only the corporate network, which led into another complications for the organization on how to protect their data. Now, due to the fact that majority of the users with such situations and such circumstances, they will be using their personal phones or laptops or machines, or even their work machines. They will be used as a dual persona to access their personal data. They will be highly demanding for the privacy, to maintain their privacy without compromising their privacy. It's really very sensitive area, and especially with regulations protecting privacy around the globe. So that created the challenge for the organization that they need to control the data, their data, while it's moving around from every single machine through any network to the cloud, public cloud, private cloud, or even like open data centers because of the COVID-19 and even the digital transformation. So the challenge will be for the organizations to secure the data, complying with the regulations, different regulations, things like GDPR, PCI, and others, while respecting the privacy of the user. And this is where Lookout platforms and Lookout security solutions will help. Lookout security solutions main component is the Lookout security graph. It's our main data set that consists of all the security algorithms, the security tools, talking about the big data analysis, machine-based learning to identify the security threats and anomalous behavior here. Now, out of the lookout security graph, we have different modules that can be categorized into two areas. The first one, which will be related more into the mobile endpoint security, and that will be looking into the security posture of the device from malware, phishing attacks, other compliance issues. And the second modules will be related to the cloud side protection, which things like about the cloud security broker, about the zero trust management, certain data loss prevention. In today's session, we will be talking about these modules, these components, and how they will be work together in order to provide you with end-to-end protection. And that's the lookout delivery, the main delivery that lookout will provide a zero trust security model for your data protection, whether you use public cloud, data centers, infrastructure as a service, and from all mobile endpoints. And that's an integrated model. So we will explore how Lookout will help you. We will talk about Lookout a platform, and then we will talk about several use cases and how is the integrated solution will help you achieve your requirements and your like your goals by like providing a fully automated and integrated solution to protect or to provide end-to-end protection for your data from the endpoint side as well as from the cloud side. If we start with the first component, which is the Lookout mobile endpoint security that has certain modules, as I said earlier, this will be more related into the endpoint protection that we provide. The Lookout mobile endpoint security, it covers three main platforms, iOS, Android, and Google Chromes, and it usually has multiple modules. The first module that we will be talking about, which is our more modern endpoint protection, which is basically a security approach that will provide the security posture for the mobile devices based on our analysis. Now, what are the major threats that we are looking after? So based on our data set, we are looking into certain threats. I think one of the most prevalent threats are the app-based threats and attacks. So we will be having visibility into malicious applications such as Trojans, spywares, surveillanceware. Also, we will be looking into apps with vulnerabilities that could lead into further damage to your data. We will also analyze the application that could like introduce a risky behavior, like privacy intrusive application into your fleet. And we use this through like multiple algorithms, but mainly we leverage our data set of more than around 130 million applications these days. Also, we will look into the device-based threat. Lookout uses the data set of more than 200 million devices that we have right now and apply advanced algorithms related to the anomaly detections, to the firmware fingerprints mapping in order to identify device-based attacks. The most familiar, like the most common ones would be root and jailbreak with the different variants, because root and jailbreak, some of them are like basic ones that usually triggered by end users themselves on their devices to get extra access to the device. But sometimes this will be triggered by a malicious actor, usually in some sort of mobile APT attacks, in order to have full access to the victim device with all the data there, including credentials, including SMS, WhatsApp, all the emails there. And even they can remotely operate the microphone and the camera in order to do recording for the environment around the phone. Also, with the expand of the usage of the mobile devices across the organizations, and with the focus by the attackers on the mobile devices, we started to have even to see a lot of vulnerabilities reported on the operating system. So organization needs to keep an eye on the vulnerability posture of the devices, make sure that only healthy devices can connect and consume their corporate resources. Also, some of the attacks that we look into the device side, it's the configuration things, like something, whether the developer mode is enabled or not, whether there is a passcode on the devices or not, in order to assess the security posture of the device. Also, and as we said earlier, because the mobile devices and the users connect to any network, organization cannot tell or cannot validate if these networks are doing something malicious or harmful to the traffic. So Lookout will add another layer of protection, and will look into the threats, whether man in the middle or SSL downgrading protocol attack that's in place, identify the user disconnect in order to prevent any data compromise from the device. We do this usually through a cloud delivery module where the client will send certain telemetry, non-PII, non-confidential data to the Lookout security graph. We will do the analysis, and that's usually will result to the value that we provide to the user with a very friendly message that they have security issues, that they need to resolve it, which result in a high rate of self-remediation of the threats by the end users themselves. This can be combined with different enforcement points like MDMs, like identity access management, like with the Lookout vision, we can have it with CASBs and ZTNA in order to provide continuous conditional access here. Now, the protection for Lookout usually is provided through a lightweight application that doesn't do any intrusive operation on the device in order to maintain the device resources and systems. Now, the second component that we usually took or have it within our mobile endpoint security component, which is our phishing and content protection. So the main challenge with the mobile device is that the phishing surface that can be used by the attackers is not restricted to the corporate email. That's number one fact, because you have personal emails, you have messaging platform, you have embedded browser, you have social media, and you have native apps, and all of them are communicating and can be leveraged by attacker in order to send some sort of phishing attack here. The second fact that unlike the corporate email, which is protected by multiple security layers and multiple security countermeasures, this is not the case with the mobile devices. If I send you a phishing link over SMS or WhatsApp, you will have no security countermeasure in place, except your training not to fall for such phishing attacks. So that's another area. So what Lookout will do, it will provide a comprehensive technology that will identify the malicious links, will identify the malicious URLs that the user is trying to connect, regardless from any app or any communication from the mobile device, and block such applications. And this will usually enable the organizations to do some sort of policy-based reporting and protections for the sensitivity and the privacy of the user, which is a main topic here. We are having the mode to hide the URLs from the admin. So the user will get a blocking message, they will know what's the website, but the admin will not be able to see what URLs and what domains are visited by the user. And again, because of the privacy-centric approach that we have, we will not inspect the actual content on the URL or on the traffic. What we are looking for is only the destination of the URL or the domain, which is really important here. Another module that we talk about that's part of the Lookout mobile endpoint security functionality here is the risk and compliance, the mobile risk and compliance component. So as we know, applications are on the rise. I think if you go for any of your user mobile devices, you will see that they are using hundreds of apps. Some of these apps will have access to the sensitive data. Some of these apps will be sending data outside of the organization and will be sending sensitive data. Imagine, like, for example, a flashlight application on Android. It's normal to have a camera permission for its own operations. But what is not normal here, if that particular application is asking for example, address book permission, and then you see that it's transferring the address book into third-party country or organization. So at least the organizations, they need to have this visibility in order to help them. Lookout will be able to help them get this visibility so they can limit the risk of certain data leak, customize the apps that are allowed within the organizations, and then see what they need to enable, because that differs also from an organization to another organization. Some organization will be okay with apps leaking locations, but other organization, as you can imagine, this would be a serious security threat for them. And again, what Lookout is providing self-remediation, and then also showing the alerts to the users while maintaining the privacy and redacting the name of the apps here. Another plugin or another module that formulate Lookout mobile endpoint security, which is the endpoint part of our platform here, is the mobile vulnerability and patch management. As we said, because of the usage of the mobile devices, increased usage, increased targeting by the attackers, you will see even on whether iOS or Android, the frequency of the patches is getting much higher. So that's why organizations, they need to keep pace with that. They need to know what the current security vulnerabilities on their mobile devices, whether this is related to the OS itself, to the device, or sometimes to the apps. So first of all, they need to know which versions are installed, what are the current security patches, what are the current versions of the apps, and then see what are the latest available patches, OSs, and the details of the OS vulnerabilities and the application vulnerabilities. Provide capability to our organization to set policy to allow only health OSs and devices based on the patches and the apps versions, in order to have certain security posture, and either decide whether to allow for them to access the corporate organization and the corporate data or not. And how this usually works, because of Lookout large data set of 200 million devices, more than 130 million applications as of now, we usually look into our data set, compare the different devices based on certain modules like the OS version, the device model, the device manufacturer. In certain areas, we also compare the mobile carrier information. And based on our data set, we can tell you that this particular mobile device has certain upgrade path to certain OS level, to certain security patch level that you need to consider. One of the new technology that we are introducing into the market, which is our mobile EDR component. Our mobile EDR component will be able to provide the organization with the capability to set a new policy, do threat hunting, provide more forensics analysis for them in order to correlate data and events, look into the database of Lookout, the threat analysis and the threat data set. And that will allow for the organizations to have extra capabilities in case they have existing threat model analysis EDR for desktop. they will be completing the picture by adding the mobile component here. And that's usually will add extra benefit for them to correlate, for example, against cross-platform attacks that target both desktop and mobile platform. So this will provide with a better, I would say, responsiveness into the threat, and the emerging threats can identify any such cross-platform attacks on within their fleet. Now, how mobile EDR works? So Lookout usually will report certain incidents based on the conditional access and the response policies that we have. This will get certain alerts here, and this also will provide the capability to do self-remediation. After containing the incidents at the endpoint side, the administrator, the threat researcher will leverage the forensics analysis of the environment that Lookout provides related to the attack. And after that, they will start investigating based on the attack attributes, attack IECs, attack data, in order to see whether they are able to hunt and search for similar issues based on a lot of attributes. Could be a common command and control servers in the backend, and update the policy in order to enhance or have a better proactive protection against certain attacks based on a lot of attributes here. Now, after covering the first part, which is the endpoint component of Lookout security platform, we will move into the cloud side component of Lookout. And we'll start first about our cloud Caspi component. And this component, so we'll talk about our cloud access security broker component and how can help integrate into the multi-cloud environment, provide adaptive access control, data protection, governance, DLP for your cloud services. So again, if we talk about the main challenges right now for the organization, first of all, unlike the data within or the services within the data centers, basically once you go into the cloud services, you need to, first of all, get visibility over all the data that goes into the cloud that serve your business, and this is really important. So I would say the number one priority for the organization is to get visibility. What kind of data goes where? If I have a shadow IT within my environment or within my user base. So I need, first of all, to classify the data and see where they are sitting, in which services, whether they are sanctioned and approved cloud services, or they are personal ones, unsanctioned ones that's not approved by the organization. And then the second priority will be for the organizations, whether they can protect such data while they move across the different cloud services and the hybrid IT environments, like from data centers to the cloud or vice versa. Also, you need to have some sort of protection here in order to get the visibility. So I don't want sensitive data to leak out from my organization. Credit card numbers, patient information, PII data based on certain regulations such as GDPR, PCI, HIPAA. The third challenge, which will be about the zero trust access to the apps, like which networks, which devices, are they managed, unmanaged, which type of users they are connected, the devices, are they having the required security posture, in order to have authority or to be authorized in order to have access to the data. So that's another layer to have it. Which application from which device? Because even sometimes from a managed or approved device, I'll have certain apps that are allowed to consume the resources, but other apps will not be allowed to do the same. So that's also another area to consider here. Sometimes also you have different variants of threats. Some of them will start from an insider threat that they need to move data in an unauthorized way, or sometimes you will have an advanced malware that will try to steal the information. So the goal for our CASB solution would work with the endpoint technology is to identify these risks, these malwares, these components, and then respond accordingly based on the security policy that we will set here. And then I think the one of the major components here is we see compliance with regulations. You will see like moving sensitive data into the cloud across different geographies, different regulations, data residency regulations. This also add another layer that the organization need to take care of it, and they need to like maintain compliance with the different regulations, and that what Lookout CASB solution will help identify here. So here, if we talk about the major capabilities that organizations seek with having a technology. So the first thing we need to talk about the challenges. So if we summarize the challenges that organizations have while moving into the cloud services, and this is only on the rise, many organizations are moving into consuming either public cloud services or private data centers, private clouds, or even have a hybrid model here. So the challenges can be summarized with, first of all, lack of visibility, the data protection regulations, enable productivity into the users, see if there is any unsafe configurations, the regulations that the organization need to follow. There are also certain threats that need to take care of them, such as, for example, insider threats, improper access, external threats through malware attacks, risky configurations, also sometimes certain compliance exposure. Like, for example, if PII data is leaked, that could be considered as a breach for regulations of data residency, such as GDPR. Compliance parts based on the type of data that the organizations deal with and operate with, they need to mandate certain compliance with the regulations, and that also can be like for multinational companies. They will have multiple regulations to follow. Depends on their geographical locations, depends on their dealing of data. So they could be like covered by GDPR, PCI, HIPAA altogether. So these challenges about how to provide optimal access to the data, how to maintain good productivity, enable the users to work remotely, use their own devices to access the corporate data, how I want to protect the sensitive data regarding of that contains, for example, data which is covered within certain regulations, PII data, credit card information, how I need to enable while keeping the users active and productive here, regardless of what they need to do, and how we apply the governance and compliance requirements. So these are the main challenges that the organizations need to take care of them, which Lookout Security Graph, the cloud side components of it, CASB zero, the cloud access security broker and the zero trust network access components will be able to help with this operation. So the main thing about Lookout CASB solution, it's data centric, and then it's also context aware approach. So you have a unified security engine that can apply different modules, different functionalities, and can ensure like the user will get a consistent experience from everywhere. That component will look into certain threats, like for example, the DLP functionality, whether the user will be allowed to get certain data from the device or download certain information in case the data will be like targeted for whatever reason. Like for example, ransomware, how I do data recovery in order sometimes to do as well data protection, which users are allowed to receive the attachments or the sensitive details, which users are not allowed to receive such informations. How I can apply some sort of user behavioral analytics. Like for example, this particular user used to download a few files a day, like for example, a few MBs for a long period of time, which is a few months, and then out of sudden he's downloading a credit card file that was 10 GB of data. So this is an anomaly that needs to be flagged in order to do it. Also, you need to look into the posture management of the device, whether the device is secure enough, enabled enough in order to have access to the sensitive data, to the sensitive information here. And also depends on the regulations that the organizations need to follow, what kind of reactions I need to do, like why I should not send credit card information, how to enforce such policies. So what happens, Lookout will look into the posture of the manage endpoints, what are the users doing with them, which users, mobile devices, the unmanaged endpoints. So that's usually across the different endpoints, the different type of configurations, users, and then apply the policy engine based on a modular basis. So you can choose to apply some of these capabilities and functionalities and enforce the protection. So you can tell whether you need to allow for the user to have, for example, user from a managed endpoints, they will be allowed to download certain files, but from unmanaged endpoints, they will be only restricted to online reading or online viewing for the information. Now, CASB is usually looking into the public cloud services. The key thing about the Lookout CASB is not only restricted to certain platform, Office 365 or G Suite. We have integration with almost the majority of the leading services, things like SAP, SuccessFactors, Slack, Salesforce, ServiceNow, and many other services. The TNTA component, usually this is for apps that enterprise applications that hosted in cloud infrastructure, or sometimes even the data center applications. So we will be able to apply any of these policies into your environment based on the deployment model, and this can lead into applying data-centric approach into protecting the data as they move to the cloud and from the cloud to the endpoint. So just to summarize, the Lookout CASB Plus environment will provide the organization with a multi-cloud security platform that can integrate with many cloud services, not only for Office 365 or G Suite, anything that works for the organization that they use. And our advanced data-centric solution will help the organization, first of all, getting visibility. So they will have a deep visibility, and that will basically prevent the shadow IT and know at least where the data of the organization goes and to which services, to which cloud environments. That also, after getting the visibility, will apply the organization to set certain policies around the access. So which users, apps, and devices are allowed to consume certain services, and what kind of a granularity for this access, whether they will be allowed to download files or just to view them. This also will lead to the fact that organizations can set adaptive controls to protect the data. So they can set certain data classifications, integrate with data classification solutions, enforce DLP, and even sometimes add another layer of encryptions here. Also, that will lead into the capability, provide the organization with the capability to investigate incidents based on every available factor. Could be malware, user behavior, anomaly, and many other factors. Because of the approach, this also will provide with the capability to prevent incidents and threats. And that's mainly through our anomaly detection, machine-based learning algorithms that we imply within our CASB, and with certain integrations with solutions like SIEM and incident response here. One of the key benefits of the CASB Plus is the compliance, the insurance of the compliance with the organization. So with the proper configuration, you can comply with the regulations that you need to have integrate like compliance with, whether it's be related to data residency or data protection. And also, as we will explore in the next model, it's not only restricted to public cloud services. Through the deployment of our TNTA components and SASE technology, you can also extend these policies and configurations into enterprise applications, whether they are in cloud services or in your data center. So now moving into the second component of Lookout SASE portfolio, which is the cloud side part of Lookout platform, which is Lookout Zero Trust Network Access. So you can think of the Zero Trust Network Access as a better replacement for a VPN solution that will allow for you to extend the CASB, the Lookout CASB Plus capabilities into corporate private apps, whether they are hosted in a cloud infrastructure like Azure, AWS, Google Cloud Services, Azure or AWS or Google Cloud. It also will allow access to the apps hosted within your data center. Why this is really important? Because especially with the COVID-19 moving into a remote workforce, the initial solution was to use VPN. VPN has a lot of drawbacks, could be related to the scalability, because initially it was designed only for a subset of users there. Enforcements for data-centric, for different approaches of security, extension for legacy apps to have capability to integrate with a single sign-on to provide a consistent end-user experience, whether they move into public SaaS services or enterprise services. So you need a consistent unified experience here. And once this combined with the CASB, this will provide a good foundation for the organization to adopt SASE products and information. So the TNA, it's like a better replacement for the VPN to access the private applications, whether they are hosted on-premise or in a cloud infrastructure, and they will complement the CASB. They will extend the capabilities to such applications. So what the ZTNA will offer into the organizations, aside or better than the VPN or other technologies. First of all, you'll get a unified policy enforcement that can be shared between the different apps, whether they are on-premise, whether they are hosted in the cloud, in addition to the CASB component that tailored for the public cloud services. It also can be deployed without the need for an agent to be deployed on the devices and the endpoints. So you can also have it for unmanaged and personal devices. You can apply data security, you can apply DLP functionalities, malware scanning. You can also look into additional encryption based on the DRM functionalities that you have. You can, even if you are connecting to a legacy application that they don't support IAM integration because of the TNA component, we can extend the support with such SSO providers. So if you use Bing or Okta, the TNA will extend this even to legacy applications. That also can be integrated with different technologies like SIM solutions, EDR, in order to provide the visibility and monitoring. And with the components, Lookout can add the capability to look into the posture management of the mobile devices, managed and unmanaged, if there is malware, etc., connecting to which networks, from which locations, they are all will be taken into consideration while we look into it. So to summarize, what the TNA will give to you, first of all, it will give a way to access private corporate apps, private organizations apps, whether they are hosted in the data centers on a premise one or in the cloud infrastructure, without the need to use VPN. So it will eliminate the need for implicit trust challenges that VPN introduce. You can enforce user-based controls like identity, a granular access to each application. What you can do also, you can hide application, because in apps, they will stay the same way within their environment, deeply covered within the data centers inside them. It's just an outbound connections to the ZTNA component, and then the ZTNA component will take care of publishing it into the users. So this will prevent discovery of your applications. You can do micro segmentation for your network, so you can allow for users. And then one key benefit that usually you will get from the ZTNA is extending the identity management, multi-factor authentication, single sign-on capabilities into even legacy applications. And that will streamline the user experience. So whether you have public services, which I think majority of the organization right now, they will not have a single like approach, all SaaS or all on-premise data center. Majority of them, they will have some sort of hybrid deployment. So when you get CASB plus the ZTNA, the end user will have a unified experience to access the corporate resources, whether they are hosted in a public data center, whether they are hosted like public cloud services, or whether they are a private apps hosted in a cloud infrastructure, or even legacy apps and private apps hosted with on-premise deployment. So these all will be covered by the ZTNA to provide a better end user experience while maintaining visibility and security to the organization. Now, after talking about Lookout's products, Lookout modules, Lookout the platform, how this fit into the story, into the use cases. So we will go over a few use cases just to analyze how Lookout help you address the different security threats. So the first use case, if a user is trying to connect from a compromised phone, compromised device into the corporate data, and that could lead into some data exfiltration, data leak for organization data. What happens Normally, if there is no lookout product or platform in place, that would be a successful attempt. The user will access the corporate data with a compromised phone, and the compromised phone depends on the nature of the malware that is there. It might be able to have access to all the corporate data, download them, exfiltrate them, share them with an attacker. Now, if the organization has lookout security modules, the endpoint security here, you will see that lookout will identify that there is a compromised phone. This will alert the user and will prevent access to the corporate data based on the security posture. So lookout will block the access and will not allow for the user to consume corporate data through continuous conditional access story and the integration points that we have in place. Now, the second use case, it's all about trying to see the second use case, it's about the distinguish from managed and unmanaged devices. So with the normal scenario and without the integrated platform of the cloud endpoint to cloud, both the personal laptops with the user as well as with the managed laptop or managed devices, they will have access through VPN. They will be able to access all the information is downloaded in them into into their unsanctioned device, unmanaged one. But if you combine it with the lookout cloud site protection, which is the TNTA or the CASB, they will connect it through their personal laptop. Because of the granular policy, we will allow for them to view the data and the documents, but we will not allow for them to download it. So we will block the downloads, and we will only allow the downloads, for example, for approved devices. So in case it's a company laptop that has all the required security controls, then we will allow this. So that's like a distinguish between the managed and the unmanaged devices use case. And as you can see, this will comply with the regulations because, for example, the company laptop, for example, has more restriction, does not have a USB enabled, like to move files, unlike the personal laptop. So I'll allow only for the personal laptop to view the files, but I'll not allow for them to download it, unlike the company laptop here in that case. The next use case, it's about a user that connecting from an approved device, but he might need to do something like malicious, which is something like we name it as insider threat. So this user normally and without the lookout integrated endpoint-to-cloud services, the user can download files as much as they want without this visibility. Now, if you put lookout CASB and the TNA in place, here we are talking about the CASB because it's more about public cloud services. Usually we monitor the user behavior over a certain period of time, and we create a baseline machine-based learning. If we see that this user has anomalous behavior, we can flag this and respond to it. So for example, if the user download or interact with Salesforce on a daily basis with a few megabytes, then out of sudden, he's trying to download healthcare details, PII information, credit card information in a few hundreds megabytes or even gigabytes. That's something we will flag it and we will respond to it as an organization. Now, with the ransomware, like normally, if you need to have access, the ransomware can go do encryption, prevent you from having like from using the data of your environment. Now, once lookout in place, lookout can block the malicious activity before it reaches to the corporate resources and do the harm for the corporate data, so the control will stay within the organization hand rather than by the ransomware, and that's all because of the endpoint to cloud security platform that we have. Again, another area that use case that you may look into it, which is the a user that has access to corporate sensitive data, which is here more related into the regulations. PII data could be something similar to the GDPR in a place. And then what this will do, if the user download the files from the corporate Dropbox accounts and then try to upload it to their personal account without having lookout in a place, they will not be able to the organization will not be able to prevent this. So the user will be able to upload sensitive data into unsanctioned cloud services. If you have lookout cloud security cloud platform and technology, we will allow the user to download, but because of the endpoint or the controls that we can flag at the endpoint side, we will prevent the user from uploading that PII sensitive data into unsanctioned network. So just to analyze or to summarize here, what lookout technology, which is the endpoint to cloud security model, the integrated platform that we have, it will allow for the organizations to have a privacy-centric approach that will protect the data as they move from the endpoints of their devices. Any of their users from any devices, whether managed or unmanaged, with the different flavors of the devices, to their services, whether they are public cloud services, whether they are private application hosted on cloud infrastructure, whether they are legacy or private apps hosted within their data center. And that what Lookout gives as a summary integrated solution that will protect the data as they move from any device by any user to any corporate services and environments. Thank you very much, and have a good day.